What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the show. I'm joined by Tom and Digby of the UAP podcast. What is going on, guys?
Yo, 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 yo.
How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, man. I'm really happy to have you guys here. We're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to talk about your podcast as well and some current news that happened recently in the world of UFO, UAPs. And lately, things have been really shaking up. Things have been really kind of building up for a while, and now because of the congressional hearings, I think it's gotten a lot more momentum as well. And then we have the hearings in Mexico, which were another story that we want to talk about as well, about you guys' perspectives on that. But first of all, guys, thank you for coming on here. I really do appreciate it. If you everyone listening at home, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel and follow us on Spotify as well. I really do appreciate that. If you want to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon or become a member of the channel. So before we get into all the news that's out there, guys, what inspired you to start this new podcast called the UAP podcast? Tom or Digby, which one do you want to go first?
Digby, you're the one who came up with the name, so I think you can take this one.
It's a great name. It's a great name.
Well, we threw around several different ideas, and UAE Pod is what we came up with in the end. I think it was the best of the bunch. But no, I mean, I've worked on another podcast with Tom briefly, and, you know, I think that we worked really well together. I think we complement each other. And we give each other that drive and that energy that we needed to do something that we feel is different to what else is being offered out there. And I think, you know, we're a new podcast. We just finished episode 3 last week, which we live stream every week. But our viewers are growing every single week. And I really think we're putting something out there that's different. You know, we don't treat it as a podcast. We treat it as a TV show almost. So there's segments to it, and we have different guests that come on throughout the episode, and, you know, we cover different topics and everything like that. It seems to be a format that's really working really well for us.
It's been a lot of fun.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you cross paths with people when you're making connections, and obviously I was on a previous show. We met Digby, and sometimes you just mesh with somebody really quickly, and Digby is very diligent as far as keeping in touch with me basically daily, despite his very busy life at the moment. So, and there's a lot of things that he does on his end that I appreciate that makes my job easier as a podcaster and content creator. So it's like he said, I feel like we complement each other really well, and we're doing something different. And I'm a huge fan of trying to experiment and trying to do things that aren't just like a carbon copy of everything else that's out there. So I'm really having a fun time with it. Three weeks in, and I am having more fun with this than I've had in like the previous year, man. It's really been a great time.
And that's awesome, man. Like when I learned about your podcast, obviously I started listening to it, and so far, I mean, I really enjoy the format. I really enjoy the tone that you guys set for the podcast as well. And that's a big thing that I think people don't really realize, is that you have to set a tone and almost like a theme for your podcast. And so I love that you guys are well informed. You guys are confident in what you do. And so far, I mean, holy shit. So I guess we'll start with this. I want to ask you guys. So I've listened to the podcast with Roy Herbert, and holy shit, that like fucking blew my mind. And it's funny because Digby was like, I've heard you talk on a Spaces, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So could you go again? And I've listened to it. I want to say I've listened to it probably like 3 or 4 times, because I'm like, I'm just trying to grasp everything he's saying, right? And,
so those were the 4 views we had on Spotify. Thanks for that.
I listened to it last night even. When I was going to bed, I was like, let me hear this again so I get this right.
Someone really likes this episode.
It's all me. I'm like, yeah, let's go. But I actually was DMing with him just yesterday. So he's a really nice guy.
You reached out to him.
Super nice guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so some of the things that he was saying just made a lot of sense. Talking about the time fluidity and the fact that it works in cohesion with gravity and all that, and so like theoretically, like what he's putting out there, it makes a lot of sense. I was like, hey, that totally makes sense. And then what really got me was when he talked about the idea that if you're living in like a different frame of time in terms of like speed, and then you were to like all of a sudden turn that off, and then now you're living in the speed of time that we're living in. He's like, that would be like a real mind fuck, and could be a reason why some of these craft are crashing, which I was like, holy shit.
Bingo.
And the thing I liked so much about it was that it wasn't so much that, it's like, oh yeah, that could be a reason why he's crashing. But the thing is that I love that it's a sort of grounded, realistic story of like, yeah, the reason why they're crashing is because their brains are fucked up for a few minutes, and they're like, oh shit. It's kind of like when a pilot, takes on too much G's, and all of a sudden they just pass out. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that when you say it that way, it shows like a vulnerability even for an intelligent species. So you're like, hey, they're not perfect either. So they come out of traveling, faster than the speed of light, and they stop, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, now we're here, and then they have this experience where they're like, oh shit, and then they crash because everyone's like, the idea that these crafts cannot crash, I think, is a very narrow way of seeing things. Like, dude, there's a ton of things that can go wrong no matter how advanced your technology is.
I mean, I would also argue that perhaps the majority of the craft that we see crash, or the majority part of the crash retrieval program, is probably the US or other governments retrieving their own backwards engineered tech that they haven't figured out yet as well. I think there's a strong case that is an element of it. But yeah, I mean, the stuff that Roy came up with, and that's only the stuff that we were allowed to air, as he likes to call. There was topo secret stuff that he wasn't allowed to divulge, and so there was a good, probably about half an hour, 40 minutes.
Oh man, I really had to edit that down. There was quite a bit that he said that did not make it into the episode at his request, and some of it is quite intense. I'll say that.
And the way he presents it too, it's very he's confidently telling you this information, and it just, I don't know, to me it made a lot of sense. Now look, I'm not a physicist, I can't sit here and say, well, let me test your theories. No, but the information he was putting out there, I mean, I was smoking what he was rolling. I was just like, dude, this makes a lot of fucking sense to
Yeah.
me, man.
Well, you only have to look at who follows him on Twitter as well
Yes.
to
That's a-
realize that he is what he says he is.
Who
Big
follows him on
indication.
Twitter?
Everyone.
Everyone.
There you go.
I mean,
Eric
God,
Weinstein.
Eric Weinstein, Ross Coulthart. Like there's a lot of big Brian Graves. Yeah, there's a lot of big names in
But I mean,
the community that follow him at this point.
If he wasn't who he said he was, then Eric Weinstein would not be following him. You know, and Eric Weinstein is one of the big people. You know, he's a mathematician more than anything else, obviously. But you know, he's way up there. You know, he's a well-recognized figure. So he is who he says he is. But he also, I mean, the guy now puts himself out on Twitter Spaces pretty much every other day, conversing with like-minded people. You know, if he wasn't what we thought he was, then he would be found out by now. But he's going places.
Yeah.
He's going places. Really? Yeah, you know, he is getting noticed more and more and more. And for us, it's nice because it's like having our own Professor Brian Cox that actually believes in UFOs, you know, and it's a big FU to Neil deGrasse Tyson, which I'm a big fan of.
I mean, to say that, you know, why would they be interested in us? I don't understand that.
Look in the mirror. Why would you? Okay, it's well, we're clearly interested in whatever is out there, right? No matter what it was, even if it was like microbial. So right there, all you have to do is just flip that around. Like intelligent life has interest in intelligent life. Period.
Exactly. I mean,
I feel like that's something that happens naturally, right? Plus, again, like you just said with the other aspect of this, it's a narrow way of looking at things. Like in the same breath, they'll say, "Oh, you know, how do we know that they'll do A, B, and C? How do we know that they think like us?" It's like, okay, well, if we just take that statement right there, then we cannot make any assumptions about anything that they do, that they think, nothing. I mean, for all we know, they may not even have music on their planet. I have no idea. They may not even be from a planet. That's the other thing. Like they may even be from here, you know, here in quotes. We have no idea. We have to think outside of the box. And I say this all the time. I mean, I'm beating a dead horse at this point. It's like my catchphrase now, but it's everything is on the table until it's not. Until we can be absolutely certain that something does not compute or it doesn't exist, it's not reality, it has to remain in the game. We can't just dispute that. We have to stay open-minded. This is how science makes discoveries. Like the weirdest, the weird scientist that's in his basement doing all these experiments, and then the next thing you know, he's winning a Nobel Prize. You know, like they're the ones that deal in abstract ideas, and that's why we like Roy. Roy will tell you himself he deals in abstractions, but he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, no, he seemed very, very knowledgeable about what he was saying and how he was saying it too. Was in more of like a lecture form, like you would get at you know, at a university or whatnot. But no, I thought that his you know, the theory he's putting out there, I thought was really, really cool, and I thought it made a lot of sense. That about how these beings are able to travel at the speeds in which they're traveling at. I mean, we're seeing them blip in and out of videos, you know, just like they're just gone. And so if obviously, you know, if they are manipulating time and gravity, and then they're essentially creating like this river, this stream of where they have to go, and they're going to go there just like that. But they're protected because the craft is likely surrounded by its own form of gravity. So it's like, you know, and I think he said this himself, is that or I think actually Tom said it, but it's like the world is moving around you. So it's like you're standing still, but the world is everything else is like
he called it being out of phase. Like it's like we're in our three-dimensional phase and we're moving at a certain speed, but if we were up in their ship, we're now in this like energetic bubble that's exempt from like inertia and centripetal force and things like that. But like you were saying earlier, you come out of that.
And that's the thing too, is that there may be a procedure in which you come out of that. Like, okay, so when you stop moving at that speed, you know, you have to do X, you know, A, B, and C in order for you to function,
Well, look what
around them.
divers
I mean,
do.
what's that?
With divers when they come up. If
Exactly.
you go down a very
Depressurization.
deep, otherwise you get the bends. I mean, I would imagine that there's, possibly something along those lines. You can't just go like that and snap back into another reality. We're all just speculating here, but it's good to throw ideas around because our scientists don't. They spend too much time going, oh, it can't exist, instead of going, well, what if it did exist? Because if they thought like that, then they might be thinking along the right track to actually develop us further. And instead of if they ask the right questions and look in the right place rather than going nothing to see here, then things would be very different for all of us.
It's dogmatic.
Yeah, it is. And then when you look at like films like Interstellar, where they're like, hey, if we go down to this planet, every 30 minutes is like 7, or every 5 minutes I think is like 7 years or whatnot. And so time is moving at a different pace based on where they're what planet they're going to. And so the idea that they could be on another planet, but in terms of time, we're moving a lot slower than they are, and they're moving a lot faster, which is why they've had time to develop their technologies and their culture and everything to such an advanced state. I was also intrigued by the idea too that that what if they are like interdimensional beings that are traveling here because of what we're doing in terms with the atomic bomb. I mean, they were like, hey, what the hell was that? But when you look at that idea and you look at the images and drawings and sculpture, paintings from the ancient world, where it would appear to me that extraterrestrials have been around here for a very long time. You look at the
Definitely.
Nazca lines. I mean, the Nazca lines is like, how on earth were they able to build or to carve those into the ground and actually know what it looks like without being able to travel, thousands of feet into the
And
air?
why? Why would you do that?
Why?
Why would you make something visible from the sky? Like it comes off as you're trying to get somebody's attention. Even that's what it looked like to me, at least.
And so one of the theories that I had too, I mean, it's not really a theory. It's just, I think a lot of people have thought about the same thing, is that, what if that was yet just another way that a long time ago, these extraterrestrials were like, hey, a one way that we can introduce ourselves to them later on is to draw these pictures in the ground, and then that way they'll know that someone is trying to contact them. But maybe and I think that I forgot who was saying it, but the idea that, like, what if that's what advanced beings do, is that they slowly put down different ways of communicating with us to try and show that they exist. But we're not of like a hive mind. We're very individual. And so maybe one of the factors that they didn't consider was that, hey, they're not sharing information. In fact, their governments and these aerospace companies are just hoarding all this information and not sharing it. So now everything we did back then doesn't mean anything, because this civilization doesn't share information. Instead, they use it as power. So, and it could be that if that were the case and they did this on another planet, that they would say, oh my gosh, look at this, somebody from up above must have made this. Maybe it's and then they come to the conclusion that they're not alone. But here it's gone a little bit differently, because they didn't predict us acting the way that we
I
do
find that
towards it.
strange too. I've asked this question. I think I made a Twitter post about it a few months ago, and I said, I wonder if other civilizations in the universe, how many more of them would handle this type of situation, visitors from either another dimension or another planet? Would they handle it in a similar fashion? Would they embrace it? Is there groupthink, that type of thing? And it's interesting to note too that Roy, I had mentioned my Grays video to him, and he made it very clear that he thinks that those beings do indeed exist, but that they're of a hive mind mentality. So it's kind of hard to ascertain how they would approach this type of thing. They're on their world, and like, let's say we found them, right? I had this idea for like a science fiction novel, like when I took a nap one day after work, where it was like the whole ancient aliens thing, but the humans were the ones that we're going out into space and we find a civilization and have to like make decisions like, is there a prime directive here? Do we interact with them? Do we wave? What do we do? And like you were saying, maybe they do here at least because we're so individualized. Like maybe that's what crop circles were. Maybe that's what the pyramids were, like kind of,
Mhm.
depending on how you look at it. It's hard to say how another species would handle an outside force coming in because you have to take into consideration, are they a warring species? Are they mostly peaceful? But would they hide it from, like, their citizenship? It also you have to like, is there a hierarchy? It goes really, really deep. I just find it kind of strange how we handle it here because I feel like the way we handle it would be sort of uncommon out in the universe. I feel like there would be more of an embrace as opposed to secrecy. I feel like like, if you look at, like, tribes around the world even, there still are uncontacted tribes. If something like this happened, like where the United States military shows up, and flies over their island and they all see it, they're all going to talk about it. They're all going to share it and it's going to end up entering their like oral tradition. Cargo cults are a really good example of this. We occupied islands in the Pacific during World War II and things went well. They didn't shoot arrows or anything at us and we had good relations with these tribal people. We gave them care packages and whatnot and then we left and then years later, we come back and they're dancing around, like airplanes made of sticks and and
Mm.
and weeds and whatnot. And they're like worshiping us as gods. So it's like there is an element to human beings to at least embrace this type of thing. But government, Mr. Big Government has stepped in and said, "Oh, no, 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 no. We can't do that because the world will crumble and the economy will collapse and whatnot." And I just think we're past that point now. I think people can handle it.
Well, I think
Well,
the world is crumbling and the economies are collapsing anyway, so
That's right.
we're
there's
already there.
nothing
We
left to
might as well.
lose.
Yeah.
That's right. Let's go for it.
Bring out the aliens.
May as well at this point. May as
Well,
well. Like, why not?
that and that's a whole other topic as well. I mean, the fact that if they were to totally disclose the existence of extraterrestrials, which a lot of us, I mean, I believe wholeheartedly that they exist. Um, what effect would that have on not just like our economy, but on the religious beliefs around the world? I mean, that would question a lot of that, and I think people would, you know, I feel as if people would go into a panic, into a shock initially, which would lead to a lot of probably bad things, and then it would morph into, you know, because it doesn't fit in some people's narratives, it would morph into they're lying, they're evil, I want them gone, go away. You know what I mean? Then it turns into people who don't want them even around our planet. Just make them go away, kill all of them. They're lying to us, they're trying to control us all. And then you'd have others who are like, no, I think they're telling the truth. Like, what are you talking about?
Mm.
And so you'd have a divide, in my opinion, because a lot of people hold religion very close to the core of who they are. And so when you start to question, people's ideals and beliefs, I mean, people will hang on to that until the bitter end, especially if it really dictates who they are.
I think religion has been, in a way, getting ready for this for an extremely long period of time now. I mean,
I hope
the
so.
Catholicism basically has no problem with the fact that there is life out there on other planets. And actually, if we look at a lot of our ancient texts and ancient religions, look at the Mahabharata from India and everything like that, you look at the Bible, there is reference to the possible existence of extraterrestrial life written throughout the entirety of our history. I don't
Absolutely.
think it needs to change religion. I mean, I'm not an overly religious person myself. I would count myself as being more sort of spiritual, which I think a lot of people really are. And actually, religion is for a lot of people there as a security blanket because they want to believe in something higher than themselves, that there is something better out there. And I get that from the phenomenon. I think that there is something out there. And I think that our government actively suppress it because if we're confronted by an extraterrestrial race, an alien race, and we look at the way that they do things and it's better than the way that we do things and they don't have the same system of government and the people of the world realize that it doesn't have to be the way that it is, then that's what government is scared of. there's a few different ways that disclosure can come out, right? There's government led, and they control the narrative. And if government do it, then yeah, they will want people to be divided by it, because when people are divided, they're weaker. They act aggressively. They create conflict. Conflict means that they can put more money into their military budgets and everything like this. So if you have a disclosure that is controlled by governments, then there's always agendas. Now, if disclosure had the ability to be led by the people, then we're looking at a completely different situation. We're looking at truth and honesty and just, the real truth coming out. But governments have an awful lot to lose. They do. There is no doubt that they do. And there are some good eggs out there. There are people out there fighting the good fight. Like your Tim Burchitts and everything, and Representative Luna. But there were also people that have come out at the beginning, making it look like they were all for disclosure, that have then sort of turned back, and you realize, well, no, you're not. You're not for it. You want to control it. And that's what we're seeing at the moment, I think. So that's what I'm worried about, is how this comes out. I think nobody who is interested in the phenomena now can look at it and go, this isn't coming out. It is coming out, but it's a process. How long that's going to take, I don't know. 2030, 2040, I don't know. But we are being acclimated day by day. Already it's there, it's out, it's in
No
front
question. Look at the media lately. Like, look, so literally, so they released No One Will Save You on Hulu, which I really, really did enjoy. Obviously, that's taking things to an extreme, and they're not necessarily trying to make us think that that's how these beings act. But now on the 27th, in 3 days, Spielberg Studio is putting out that documentary series called Encounters, which it has a high budget, and it talks. Yeah. It's Digby had that idea as a name for a documentary he wanted to do.
Right.
We'll just change. We'll spell it different. We'll spell it with a K or something. Change the C to a K. We'll be all right.
What was the name again?
Encounters.
Well, I mean, it's very common.
Right. Yeah, but it's kind of like there's this bombardment that we're seeing now, right? Like really. The amount of UFO media that's new, that's coming out this year, as opposed to the stuff that's already been floating out there for years. I mean, they're really pouring it on, and it's like, well, you got to think that there may be a reason behind that, because and I'll say this too, Eric Weinstein had even been contacted by somebody like in the intelligence community, and was basically told that they would like his help in the disclosure process. So if it's a process, one would have to assume that they're going to probably incorporate media into that. Like if you were launching a global campaign to acclimate the public and prepare them for an idea, what's the best way to do that? It's through television and film.
Yeah.
Here,
well, Spielberg's
really
been part of it from the beginning, hasn't he?
Since the 70s, absolutely.
Yeah,
Hynek is the reason the aliens look the way that they did. Everything that you see in that film basically came from Hynek, like from cases, from actual cases, and that's in my Gray's video too. That's why the beings look the way that they did.
He's listed on the credits.
Yes. Yeah. There's a character in the film that looks
based off of him,
like him, and same with Jacques Vallée. Like, there's people that are in the know. I mean, Spielberg is such a famous individual, and he has fans. There's a fan of Spielberg in every genre of work and lifestyle. Like, there's a Spielberg fan who's in the FBI. There's a Spielberg fan that works at Burger King. You know what I mean? Like, he's so well known, and it's like, that would be the guy I would be slipping information to if I wanted to acclimate the public. Yes, but I think that's what's happening, because people are still questioning whether or not disclosure will it's happening. Yes, there's a tug of war going on. There are people that are trying to kind of like throw a wrench into things. Yes, absolutely. The Collins elite, as they're called at times, the people that are concerned that what we're dealing with is very real, but that they're demons and that we shouldn't be messing with whatever these forces are, and they're frightened of it. And to some extent, I sympathize. I get it. If that's like a real fear, then I get it. If it really does shake you to your core, I understand that. But I don't think that's what we're dealing with. I think demon and angel and jinn and all of that, it's just all different words that people have come up with for essentially the same thing. But what that
Yeah.
thing really is what we need to figure out. But it's there. It's real. It's reality. And we should be aware of it at least. We can't. What would you rather, both of you? Would you rather the convenient lie or the inconvenient truth?
Oh,
It really comes
absolutely.
down
The
to
truth.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's how I feel about it.
And so it's, I think that I guess you can say the elite of this planet in terms of like, money and power and leadership, they stand to lose a lot at disclosure, because then it's kind of like, well, okay, so if we know about this, what else have you been hiding? And so that then becomes, okay, so now everybody wants to know what we got going on here. I know that they're trying to put in what was that you were talking about, Tom? In Congress, they were trying to enact a policy or whatnot. It's a task force, I want to say, that looks into all this.
Yeah, because they have Arrow and the UAP task force that investigates it, but none of us in the community really trust it because
No.
they're not doing anything that they're supposed to be doing, and I've described it as just like a governmental UFO vacuum cleaner where they're just sucking up all the information, and then if they so choose, they can just edge guard it, and nobody can really have access to it if they want. But I don't think they're being truthful.
They're so woefully inadequate.
No, yeah, exactly. Like there's two options here. They're either inept or they're full of shit. Like it really is one of the two, in my opinion. I don't see them having any real use at this point, unless there are some significant changes to the staff. Again, I'm not trying to get anybody fired, but if you're the head of Arrow and you didn't really want to be there in the first place, then perhaps you should move on and let somebody else in that actually cares about this subject, so we can actually make some leeway.
Well, let me ask you guys. I mean, what is your opinion about Sean Kirkpatrick?
That's exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I think he's got to go.
He's a joke. He doesn't want to be there anyway. He never wanted the job. So why would you ever hire somebody for a job that they don't want to have? You don't do that. Somebody goes into a job interview. Why do you want this job? I don't want it. Right, you've got the job. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
There we go.
Sort of
right? It's like worst job interview ever. Yeah, you've got the job because you know why?
Man.
We don't care. But he David Grush went to him and he ignored David Grush, didn't check up on any of his claims, or so we're led to believe.
Astonishing.
He's just he's appalling. The whole Arrow setup is appalling. Their website looks like it was done in WordPress by a 5-year-old, and we had to wait for a year for that. He doesn't understand the community that he's dealing with. He doesn't understand the phenomenon, and he's got no interest in taking it any further. So yeah, I have got no faith whatsoever in Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Tom, do you feel the same way?
Wholeheartedly, yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's like I'm not trying to attack the guy's character. I don't know him personally. He might be a really nice guy, right? But
probably not.
Right? This is politics that we're talking about here. So it's like,
it's funny.
If you don't want to be there, look. There's a lot of us that do, to be fair, go work jobs that we really don't want to work. Like I hate my day job, especially with the things that are going on there now. My God, the chaos and the toxicity. But we do it because we have to pay our bills. When this is a different situation because you're in government, you're supposed to be representing the people. There's a lot more at stake here than me waking up and going and delivering furniture. This is much bigger than that. So if you don't really have your heart in it, you should step aside and let somebody else do it. Like, I mean, we could take it even further and say that it goes beyond him, that it was a good step to create Arrow, but now we really need to be filling it with the people that really care about it. Like Arrow should be filled with like Jacques Vallée, or think of any of the major UFO researchers in the world that really give a damn, that know a thing or two. Like Richard Dolan should be like the head of Arrow. You know what I mean? Like these are people that know the topic inside and out, and are on our side of the fence as far as what they believe
an
in.
Element of non-bias.
Right. You do need that too, absolutely. But the biggest thing is that you need someone who cares. You absolutely, especially it's like if you have no interest in this, it's like, well, what the hell are you doing there? You're not
Well,
going
and
to
that's
get
the thing
anything
too, is
done.
that like was this created as more of a way of pacifying those who want to know the truth? Kind of like, hey, we have this program set up and we have this guy in charge. Don't worry,
Could be.
we're on it,
Yeah,
and not really.
It
No
could
one's
very
really on
well
it.
quite
be
possibly.
that.
If it is that, it backfired though, because it's just riled people up, especially people who are really interested in the phenomenon. It's just got their backs up, and it's just actually if they were trying to pacify us, they've just made it 10 times worse for themselves.
Yeah,
And now
they've
you've
only
got
been just more
whistleblowers
passionate.
that have the whistleblowers are now refusing to go through Arrow. There are whistleblowers in the wings that are waiting to come out, that have gone through the ICIG and are going through that process now, and have been for a while, rather than going through Arrow, and they are going direct to Congress.
That's
Um,
Well,
exciting, though.
there's a
and that is,
congressman,
and these are first-hand witnesses,
right?
Firsthand.
And
Yeah.
there's a congressman out there. I forgot his name. And I know he represents or does a lot of work with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he's been very negative towards all of
Mike
this as
Turner.
well.
Mike
Yes,
Turner.
and it's amazing how he can just go out there and just say the shit that he does and just feel good about it. Like, yep, that's that. I'm done.
Well, you know who his biggest funders are.
Yeah, I mean, he has a reason to go do that. He has a benefit to
Yeah,
go do that, and so
he
it's
gets
he
really
sure
disgusting.
does. All right.
massive donations by Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. They basically fund his campaign.
Well, and so that's another question that I wanted to ask you guys. I mean, when you have all of these private companies that are, knee deep into this technology and likely have been working on it for a number of years, to me, it seems like, you know, it's like the government is like essentially asking the mafia to help them out because now it's like you've given these companies access to this kind of technology, and now they're going to take that technology and start using it on shit that they're going to make. You see what I'm saying? Like they're going to
Yeah.
start privatizing all this technology, and so it's one of those things where it's like, it's one thing for the government to say, hey, we have all this, we've collected all this technology, and we have our people looking at it. But it seems like they're like, yeah, we have all this technology, and we have these companies' people working on this. And to me, that's opening way too many doors to privatization of this technology and all this research that it's never going to come out, and they're going to use it as their own benefit.
But that's also a government strategy too, because these private companies, if they're reverse engineering something that was not made by humans, because it's a private aerospace company, it is exempt from a Freedom of Information Act request. So it's like the government is essentially, you have what you're saying, that issue, and we're way past that. Those doors are all open because this has been going on basically since the beginning. But not only that, but now you're using those companies as a smokescreen through law. And good luck getting to it at this point. We're going to need the David Grushes of the world to come out to even have a shot of seeing any of this stuff.
We need the comments like from David Grush, though, when he talks about personal reprisals and everything like this. We need the illegal activity that they have performed to keep this secret. So, although private aerospace companies can't be called in and have to hand stuff over because they're a private company, if we can prove that they have murdered people to protect the secret and everything like that, and we go down that route, then they haven't got a hope in hell. If we go down that route, then the stuff will come out. So we almost need that element to be proven, which is why somebody like David Grush, who can speak to that fact about reprisals outside of a skiff, right? Because he can talk about threats that have been made to him without revealing anything that you could only reveal in a skiff.
Generalities.
So he can do enough. And they're not allowing him to get in a skiff. This is the stupid thing, because they're saying, well, his security clearance has passed because he no longer works for the DoD. Every time they stop and go, you can't do that. No, you can't get in a skiff. Well, why are you stopping him? If it is so, if there is no truth to any of this, why are you preventing the skiff in the first place? So
someone has a vested interest in secrecy.
Yeah,
they have a vested interest in it.
When Tim Burchett said, we don't have access to, we were denied access to a skiff, right away I was like, okay, so somebody or some entity in there is saying, okay, you're not going to be able to talk to this guy in private. There's no way. which is a shame. And a lot of people would say, why didn't he just say it straight up when like at the hearings? Why didn't he just like say, like, this is where they're located, this is where you can find it, this is everything? And everyone keeps saying, well, he kept saying he knows people, that he's talked to people. And so they try to discredit him. They try to say, okay, well, he doesn't know anything. This is all secondhand.
Yeah, but that's no
wouldn't have-
different than a lawyer going, well, I've spoken and I've investigated this, or a detective going, I've investigated this. These are my findings. You don't say to a detective and go, oh, sorry, so you've spoken to people. Have you? Why, it's about the narrative. Oh, the NASA thing was last week was just ridiculous. Oh, he said he had a friend who had a UFO in his garage. You mean that story?
Yeah, it's like that guy doesn't even know what he's talking about.
And he's
It's
the head of.
That was just.
Wasn't he the head of NASA as well?
Yeah,
Yes.
Bill, whatever his name is. But
Nelson.
that was
bad.
That was appalling.
Yeah, that was
and for
really
somebody who's supposed to be looking into this seriously to go, oh yeah, David Grush, oh, I think I saw him on the nightly news. You should be all over that.
He knows who he is. He's full of shit too.
I
It's
mean,
a
for
narrative.
him to say,
And then-
I think I heard about that on the nightly news. It's such a backhanded statement, and it's like, look, if you're the head of NASA and you're supposedly not even following what was happening at the congressional hearings, like, you've got to be out of your mind.
And you're having a
it's
hearing about
ridiculous.
this topic? Like how
He's having a
dare
hearing
you
about a
even hold a
topic
hearing?
like soon after. So there's no way that he didn't know anything about it.
And it's like
Of course.
David Grush, when you look at who he actually is, like Nelson was a senator. It's like, you of all people should know better than to be so disrespectful to someone who's served the country that way. Like, this was somebody that was handing briefings to the president, and you're talking about him like he's Joe Schmo. Like, that's a joke.
But that's a smear campaign. It's like, refer to him and talk about him like he's nobody. Like he's just some angry YouTuber or just some angry person on Twitter who's just trying to make a name for himself. And so
But you
I
can't
think
hide that like
it's
you
really
used to.
No, you can't. And I think that the old tactics that they're using, some of it doesn't work because in a modern time, there's too many platforms that will convey the message of what he's trying to put out there. He did that podcast the other day with I forgot the guy's name. On the
Jesse Michaels, was it Jesse?
Yeah,
Michaels?
Jesse Michaels, the American.
I was in a
Alchemy.
space with him the other day.
Yeah, no, and that episode was really cool. And plus, what it did was it really humanized David Grush, where you got to see him just be himself. He's wearing a shirt and a pair of shorts and just talking about this stuff. And so it lends credence to like, hey, look, like this guy's not lying. This guy's trying to do something that's right. But what they want to portray is they want everyone who listens to him to look like this, like, oh, you're just hoping to get something, and it's not the case, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So going back to the NASA hearings, I mean, I thought that was an absolute joke. I love how James Fox asked questions, and they really couldn't give him a straight answer.
They also didn't know who he was. I mean, come on. It's like, James Fox from where? Who are you?
Yeah, they're like, what outlet? And I'm like, oh, come on, please don't.
I am the
and maybe
outlet.
she really didn't know who he was.
Maybe.
But it's like, listen, we need more communication. If that's the case, then what you need to do is you need to know who's coming into the hearing. You need to figure out who everybody is that's going to be coming up to ask a question. And then, just act like you give a damn.
But
I mean, really.
You can't investigate the phenomena without taking every aspect of it seriously and doing your research. It's not just about looking at I don't know, the gimbal footage and trying to disprove it. You can't just do science that narratively, that narrowly, and just go, well, I can't prove anything from this. You need to take the whole subject on. You need to look at what other people have come to the conclusion, assertions that other people have made. Look at documentaries by people like James Fox and look at the evidence that they've gone into, because most of the work's already been done for you. And then you may actually find that you're actually interested in it and actually start thinking there is something to this. If you go out to just disprove something, you will find a way of disproving it. Yeah, but you're not looking at it objectively. That's what debunkers do continuously. They find a way to raise enough of a question to make the rest of the population go, "Oh, well, it's not true, then, is it?"
Yeah,
That's
no,
not science.
and that's the easiest way to approach anything is let me debunk you or let me negatively talk about what you're talking about, and that's what people do on radio, on YouTube. That's what it's the easiest form of interaction is negativity, and it's sad. But when you have the head of NASA now to anybody, average Joe out there, like when you hear NASA, you go, okay, yeah, they study space and technology and discovery of life out in space. But to talk about it as if it's like, that, I mean, look, he heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend. Like, show me just the facts. Just, if anything, you should be providing the facts on what's happening out there. But instead, they rather go chase comets and chase, shooting stars and be like, look at that. And those are beautiful and those are interesting. But it's like this phenomenon is happening right here on this planet, right in your backyard. And you're telling me that it's all nonsense?
I think the problem is the way that our world is structured and the power system around the world is so ready to break. It's so fragile, that actually we're just holding ourselves back because the way that we operate ourselves on this planet. Okay, there's a massive asteroid out there that's within reach of Earth, and it has got enough gold and precious materials on it that they want to go and mine it because we need more gold, right? We need it for microchips and everything like this. But there is so much gold on there that if they brought it and they mined it back here, it would completely destabilize the financial situation on the entire planet. There'd be enough gold on there for everybody on the planet to have 2 billion in the bank.
So it would basically make gold worthless.
Yeah, exactly. And it would cripple. So what does that say about our system around the world when it only works when you can only have what we've got on our ball right now? If you add anything extra onto our planet, it destabilizes everything. So we are not currently designed to be able to meet extraterrestrial life, because if we had the ability to trade outside of a system, our own current system, our system would fall apart, because we can't have anything else extra come here and we can't have anything leave. The whole thing would fall apart. So what does that say to you about the way that we operate in the world right now?
Foundation is completely unstable. So
it's broken.
Considering all of that, and since we want just the facts and we want data, maybe now is a good time to play that clip I was telling you guys about before the show. Play it. So I will preface.
Is it going to be on your screen? So should I blow you up?
I don't think so. I think once I present it, it'll just go up, and I think it'll push us off to the side, depending on how you have StreamYard calibrated. So real-time experiment, right?
All right, here we go.
Gary Nolan, one of the greatest immunologists that this world has to offer. He's obviously very involved in this whole UFO situation. He has seen things and experienced things himself personally. Made a statement that really, really, really caught my attention. And he's made a few that have done that, but this one was big. This is just about as big as any he has said. He was on the UAP Studies podcast. Shout out to them. And
they're great over there.
He really he really threw something interesting out. So let me grab the file. This was just, I guess, a couple days ago. And let me see, downloads. Okay. Get ready for this one. All right, let's see what happens when I double click. All right, I'm gonna
there it goes.
I think, let's see. All right, so I think you have to play.
I have seen data from a couple of groups now that were pretty extraordinary and obvious interactions with something. I mean, I don't want to get into the details. I'll wait for them to get their data together. I'm going to help them write up the paper. But I've never seen anything so extraordinary. I'm sorry for being,
No, you've got to respect people too, and these are your peers, right? So if you quickly get a name for just giving away people's work, nobody wants to work with you anymore.
Nobody wants to work with you anymore. But it's it is extraordinary if we can get it down. I mean, it was a once only event, but it was recorded by 2 cameras, and it was very close up. I don't know how to explain it, but it clearly reacted to their signal, and it got up close and personal. So hopefully they'll be able to put that together in a way that is publishable.
Hard data, hard evidence, and this has been in the works for some time. I've heard whisperings of it, but for that man to say that it was that extraordinary, it's like the most extraordinary thing he's ever seen. Like, guys, there's something going on. It's here.
Yeah, of course.
Like, we got to get for the crowd that still thinks that UFOs are all misidentifications and such. Like, you guys are all the way over there. We're over here now. You got to come on board. Like, they're going to publish this, and it's what it sounds like to me is that they interacted with something, perhaps that has to do with this whole shadow biosphere hypothesis. And
what is that?
It's the idea that there are things around us right now. What they are is anybody's guess, but that they're even here on Earth, but they're invisible, layered on top of us, invisible to the naked eye. But that could also go into the territory of interdimensional. It's so funny. Every time I start using these words now, I can hear Roy in my head being like, "You can't say that. You can't say it like that." For lack of better terms,
we can say it however we want.
Yeah,
we're not privy to anything.
However you want to say it, just say it. Yeah.
But
realities layered on top of ours, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. But we also live in a certain band of frequency. So everything exists within a certain frequency for us. We can see a certain light spectrum. We can hear a certain audible spectrum. That's not to say there is not more on that spectrum. So then you things that coexist in the same space, but are out, let's say, out of phase or running on a different frequency. And that makes sense for an awful lot of things, like that odd time when you hear something in your house that doesn't feel right. I've had a weird situation in my house where I'll lie in bed and I can feel somebody lie in the bed next to me, or I feel something pushed down
I've had
in the
that
bed
before,
and there's nobody there.
Sleep paralysis, I think it's called.
Oh, I've been wide awake.
That's different and way worse.
Sleep paralysis. I'd say victim of sleep paralysis my entire life. Luckily, actually, I will say I probably haven't had it for the last year or so. But I mean, I've been there with sleep paralysis, not being able to move, with my eyes wide open, seeing something very, very ungodly lying above me. And then you have to remember how to use your body, and you can shake out of it and it's gone. But I mean, it feels like half an hour of just absolute terror. And to say that is your eyes waking and your brain still fast asleep, I don't get that.
Digby, I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
Well, you're going to.
But I'm so pissed. Okay, so remember I was telling you guys earlier that I started keeping like a journal, like, of these strange things that have started happening to me recently. Like, I had it in a Google Doc file, and I just opened it because I was going to start talking about it, and it's blank. It's fucking blank.
They found it. They wanted to. They're like, we have to delete all of this now.
Wait for the knock at the door.
Does anybody else have access to it?
No. And
the men in black are coming for you, Tom.
I added something to it 2 nights ago, and I closed it. I haven't reopened it.
Maybe somebody who found it and deleted it all.
Yeah, really. You never know, right? So but, here, I could show you this though.
Okay.
I had how do I even say this without sounding absolutely insane to certain people?
It doesn't matter.
It's going to happen anyway, so I won't worry about it.
It's going to happen. A disclaimer doesn't help.
So I had something appear in my room the other night, and I'm not really sure what it was. So I'm gonna go to my Twitter because I'm gonna do it through a screen share here, make it easy. I know. I guess I could just retype these things, but it just now I'm not going to be able to get the dates right, which is kind of irritating. I'm going to have to like think about the exact, because I had the exact date, the time. Like I went into very deep detail in my journal here about what was happening at that time so that everything would be accurate. But I was working the other night. I was in Discord with my buddy. And out of nowhere, something just like caught my eye, like right above me where my ceiling meets the wall behind my computer. And it's this like transparent, like imagine I don't even want to call it this because it's not quite right. But imagine like a gold transparent like disco ball. All right. But it's like a flat plate. Like it didn't look like it was round, but I don't think it was like an orb. Let me put it that way. But it was round. And it was like a grid made up of all these like little squares. And each one of them was like flickering. Here we go. So I'll read the post. Something extremely weird happened to me the other night, and I decided to create an image in Photoshop to help visualize this thing that I saw. I was working on editing an interview and drafting a video narration while chatting with a friend on my Discord server. As I was typing, an object became visible in my peripheral vision above me and to my right where my ceiling meets the wall behind my desk. This thing, whatever the hell it was, remained visible for around 4 seconds, and I just stared at it. The best way I could describe it is a transparent round gold mosaic of individual flickering squares just suspended in the air in my room. Just as quickly as it had appeared, this object faded out and was gone, and I am now left to speculate. So I'll share my screen and I'll show you what it looks like. And again, I have no history of like hallucinations or, you know what I mean? Like just, I have to try to be like
I get it.
Rational about this, but this was weird. And it was there. There is no question about it. Let's see, right there.
Let me see. Oh, I lost my mouse. Where'd it go? Oh, it was like that.
Yeah.
That's Trippin was right there, huh?
Right there. And like I'm just working. Like what you see there right now, like that this is where I'm at right now. This is like my workspace here, and like it was just there. And I'm just like looking at it. Fades off, and I'm like what? I'm like, wait a second. Like what huh? And I'm like, I know
on the screen right there. Look at the UFO on the screen.
Yeah.
I was like, "Whoa, what's that?"
That's the background on my second screen. Got the little UFO guy there.
But it's
I don't know.
It makes you wonder, you know, if so. Let's say that these extraterrestrials are not from another planet. Let's say they're from different planes of existence, right? Interdimensional, just for us to understand what we're talking about. If that were the case, right, and you had multiple different races that were able to move through dimensions to travel to essentially different Earths, different copies of Earths, right? And then one could argue that the idea that the Earth is the center of the universe, that could be true to a degree where it's like, hey, no one's traveling here. We're all traveling to each other. We're just living on different dimensions, and we're able to, it's like a multiverse of Earths that we're able to, but certain species are able to actually travel between those multiverse and through the multiverse to different planets. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And it's almost like the Earth would be like the center of one particular universe. Like maybe each planet is like that.
Or maybe each universe or each galaxy has
a
planet in which, you know, it sits in the right spot at the right, you know, just like in that Goldilocks zone where it's able to do this and be able to, you know. So you never know, but either way,
it's a weird one. But all these other things happened days later too. I was in a Twitter space. And it was my boy Astral. Digby knows who I'm talking about, our good friend off of Twitter, and one of my like work partners here at this point. We do a lot of stuff together, host spaces and whatnot. And he was holding his 1 year anniversary remote viewing stream. And I made a joke in the comments and I was like, somebody should remote view my room right now, and of course it turned into like vulgar jokes and such. And I was like, nah, nothing weird going on. I'm dressed, blah blah blah. And this girl named Hey Ocean, who comes to all these spaces, she did it,
Cool.
and in real time, like nailed all this stuff in my room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's doing it. She's doing it live. It's in real time. She was accurately describing things that she could not have possibly known at all. And she even named a very specific object that's in my room that like nobody even like there's no way that you would know that. So we're talking about this through messages, right? 5 minutes later, there's this like black shadow that shoots from this side of my room behind my chair and behind me like real fast. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell was that? It's almost like, like if a cat, and I don't have a cat, it just shot behind me. And I'm like, and I messaged her and I'm like, could that have been her? Like in some weird way, because she was just remote viewing my room. Did I just see like her disconnected consciousness, like, or something? You know what I mean? I don't know. And then last night, the last thing that I just added is I was just sitting here doing my thing. And I mean, it was strong. I'm just typing. And there was just this strong aroma of incense. And now I like incense, but I haven't burned any incense since I came back here to this house. Since I moved, I haven't burned any incense, and it's all packed away. Like it smelled like incense was being burned, like right next to me. Like it was thick, it was heavy, and then it just dissipated. And I'm like, what the hell is that? So I typed that up in that journal last night. I closed that tab. It saves. I just opened it here on the show, and it's all gone.
That's weird.
It is weird.
That's where that's
and I don't know why these things are just suddenly starting to happen. I'm not doing it for attention. I'm not, trying to keep people interested. I have plenty of things to talk about, plenty of cases and things that I could go if I wanted to keep people busy. I could get Digby to dress up as a clown and do a dance or something, right? Digby, you're down for it, right? I knew you would probably do it. So I don't know, man, but
I'll do it right now.
Yeah, there we
go. So it's my job to report these things as they happen, being that I am a researcher of these things. But it sucks because it's a double-edged sword. Because someone could just be like, well, this guy's just, he's just doing it for attention. And it's like, yeah, man, sure. Tell that to the thing that was like floating in my room the other night. Right. I'm just telling you what happened. That's it. Maybe we're entering a period on this planet where those things are more visible. People keep talking about the veil thinning and we're going through like 40 consciousness upgrade or whatever. There's different ideas out there. All I know is that it was weird. And there's been multiple weird things that have happened over the last week and a half specifically in bunches. I mean, there's even more. I'm not going to, I don't want to like take up all the time here, but those were like the main ones. And
you get a camera set up in your room so we can just record.
Well, I have my webcam here and I'm going to start probably running it at night and just, I have a massive hard drive. I'm not going to live stream me sleeping. Nobody wants to see that. Lots of rolling around and drooling and twitching and all types of stuff that nobody needs to know about that I just revealed.
We're like,
Tom's free balling.
Tom, yeah, he sleepwalks. Oh, I don't think he.
I like to stay comfortable.
Oh God.
But yeah, man, it's weird. Like,
it's weird.
But not everybody has these experiences, and it sucks because it's like, then it. Someone who's never had this happen to them, they just chalk it up to like, oh, well, that person's got issues or they're going crazy or something. That's not the case. It's really not
the case at all. I mean,
at all.
And it could be that certain individuals are more sensitive to these type of things or just more aware of them as well. Like it happens to everybody. They're not really aware of it, so they don't, put much stock into it. What was that on? Whatever. But
there's theories about it.
Yeah,
I think it's got something to do with past trauma or mental trauma or anything like that. I think, and you see this quite a lot within the community, is that people have come out the other side of something very traumatic or addiction or things like this, and it forces people to look at the world in a slightly different way, and then people become more receptive. It seems like everybody in the community has got their story to tell, not just of their experience of UAP, UFO, or something else within the phenomena, but they have their story to tell. There isn't a single person out there that I've met that hasn't had something.
Well, speaking of stories to tell, I mean, when we talked about the congressional hearings, I mean, one of the stories that I find so fascinating is the story of Commander David Fravor and what he experienced out in the ocean, flying his, the F-18. And let me pull this up real quick. And so when when he sees something like this, like a Tic Tac, moving rapidly around another gigantic white whatever.
Where
this
did you
was,
get this image?
I think this is from the Moment of Contact.
Yeah.
No, Phenomenon.
Not Phenomenon.
Yeah, there's a reenactment.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
But this to me was like, man, like when I saw this, I thought, okay, so we're putting a lot of stock and a lot of time into talking about the Tic Tac itself. But like one of the things I always wondered was what the fuck was in the water? It's like a massive version of that Tic Tac.
So I may have an answer for that, Digby, too.
Well, I had an interview with a guy who used to be in the US Navy. And he was serving on a ship, and it was, I can't remember the name of the incident now. I'm looking it up as we speak. But it was a very famous incident about an American ship fired on a Turkish ship by accident and sunk the Turkish ship. And it was all over the news.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I know what you're talking about.
Right, thank you. So this guy was serving on this ship, and he went out to dump the trash over the back of the ship, which is apparently what they do, which it sounds absolutely horrific. That's actually what they do. But there was a light underneath the water, and at first he thought it was the reflection of the moon, until this light got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was 500 meters across. He said it covered up the whole wake of the ship. Yeah. And it was there, clear as day, this light. And then all of a sudden, it went back down and it sunk back down underneath the water. Next day, they fire a missile, apparently by accident, and it hits a Turkish ship. And, a lot of people died in that incident. And then he was listening in the mess hall to some commanding officers talking about it, and it wasn't the case that somebody accidentally fired a live missile on a training practice exercise like they thought it was, but the fact was that they were firing at something in the sky, and the thing that they were firing at in the sky deflected the missile and made it hit the other ship.
Wow.
Really?
So what they were actually doing out there wasn't a training exercise. They were tracing the bloody things underneath the ocean. Now he overheard this.
Saratoga?
Yes.
That's actually what it was?
Yeah. Yeah. And I spoke to the guy who then later on went and served in Iraqi freedom and all those war zones, who then would say that they actively saw orbs flying over their war zone all the time. Everybody sees them. They just don't talk about them. They're there, clear as day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the Saratoga. So on my old YouTube channel, just look it up, and there's an interview with him. Actually, I think it's on my Rumble. He's on Twitter as @HighlyRetired. Brandon, his name is. Really great guy to interview. In fact, actually, Tom, I think I'll probably get him to come back on and speak to us on our show. He's brilliant. But yeah, I mean, he's not bullshitting. It's absolutely true. And then I looked into it some more, and it makes sense. They said that basically somebody accidentally fired a live missile in a training exercise, and the excuse was, I thought you said live fire. And it's like, it was just all bullshit. These people
Yeah.
practice these drills over and over and over and
There's
over
no
again.
accidentally.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
this is
sorry, I
not
thought
known.
he was tired and he misunderstood, so he fired a live missile. That shit doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
Not to mention, you don't just fire it at another ship without having confirmation that I'm firing upon this.
I just want to make the point here too that this is not something that appears to be very well known, even in the UFO community. I've never heard. I knew about the Saratoga, and I mean the official story of the Saratoga. I'm just familiar with it. I just remember hearing about it some History Channel or something. But now I'm hearing from a firsthand witness that you spoke to that's not what happened. And it's much weirder than that. Like, I had no idea this incident had anything to do with UFOs at all, dude. I thought it was just an accidental missile fire.
If anybody gets a chance, there's on my my other YouTube channel, which is Beyond the Veil. Just search my name, Digby Furneaux. It will come up. We go to the video section, and it says Beyond the Veil, Brandon Stern, USS Saratoga UFO sighting 1992. What really happened? I've clipped it down. So that's 7 minutes. 7 minutes 27 seconds long. The full interview with Brandon's also up there, which was an amazing interview. But if anybody gets a chance, just have a look at it, because it's actually a really interesting story, and I think you'll agree that when you listen to the way Brandon talks, he's not making it up. This is what he saw.
Do you think that they were firing upon like something like the Tic Tac, or were they firing upon what was
they were firing upon something that came out of the water, is I think what we're talking about here. But then this looks very similar to what we're looking at here. Now that light, it looks like a light under the ocean, right? That's exactly what Brandon was talking about. And then you've got a Tic Tac. So was the light under the ocean what Brandon saw, and then what they were firing at was a Tic Tac? But whatever he said, it was they aimed it at the thing in the sky, and the thing in the sky deflected it and made it hit the other ship. Yeah, people died on that. But
yeah, that's crazy. And to think about it too. I mean, when you look at the types of UFOs that have been out there over time, a lot of it is like the saucer shaped type craft. But recently, I don't say recently, but like modern day, I mean, you're looking at more the cigar shape, the Tic Tac shape. So it makes you wonder if like this is like yet another evolution in their technology, that they moved on from that style to this. And when you look at the case of like Betty and Barney Hill, it really felt like there were humans there with these extraterrestrials that that they were almost working together to do these abductions and to do kind of do these studies and these works. And that in itself was a Barney described that it was a saucer shaped with windows, and so it makes you wonder, like, okay, so could that have been like a reverse engineered technology, or a version built by humans using their technology, and they had aliens on there with them, showing them like, okay, this is how you do this, and then they're kind of working together on this. And so maybe some of the craft that we have are based off of their older technology. Because I mean, when you see the Tic Tac, I mean, it looks so foreign to us in terms of like how that's able to operate and do what it needs to do. But there's so many different types of craft. I mean, I'm gonna go to this video right here. This is the one from Jeremy Corbell where let's see.
Pyramid shape.
These pyramid shapes, and you're kind of like, wait a minute, like, okay, now we have yet another style of craft.
It's the shape I saw as a kid, triangular.
And it's like, is that an individual craft right there, or was it attached?
There's been some debate on this footage.
Yeah, this has kind of been debunked as well by some people.
Yeah,
well
I've heard though that there's been other incidents that maybe this footage isn't a good representation, but there really are like Navy ships and crew seeing objects that are shaped like this, that are just swarming the ships, and that this footage isn't necessarily the best representation of it.
2, 3, or is it just the one and then separate? As it's hard to say.
Well, the theory is they're actually stars that are just out of focus and going through a lens flare on a night vision camera.
Or
with swamp
bouquet.
gas. Yeah.
And they've replicated it, and they do end up looking kind of like that. But yeah, I wouldn't like to speak as to whether I feel that this is an authentic one, because I think this particular one has been debunked.
It's been hotly debated in the least, but I'm
hotly
with you,
debated.
Digby.
Yeah,
I
but there
look
is
forward
the
to-
fact that it isn't real, and not that it's been faked. It's just been misidentified, and that's fine.
Right, and
but
that
that's why we
happens.
need proper research, proper scientists looking at it objectively, and people need to go, no, this one isn't real, and they won't all be real.
Exactly.
I reckon probably 98% of it is shit.
Then,
but there's the 2% that isn't.
That's a lot.
This one's a lot too. I mean, this one is really interesting.
This one's weird.
This
one's weird. And I think this one's authentic. There's another one too where an object dips down into the water and then comes back out. That's authentic as well. I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says about that footage. Like, we don't have anything in our inventory that's shaped like that can move like that, go underwater, speed up, and come out at breakneck speed. I'm sorry, we just don't.
Well, and the thing too is that kind of like what Digby was saying earlier is that, could this be this is a craft that was reverse engineered by
Could be. It could be.
So
it could very well be
a human craft that they're seeing, and that's why they're being so cavalier about like where they're flying these things, because it's like, well, those are our guys, don't worry about it.
It's just that there's danger associated with doing this, right? So if this is let's say it's still reverse engineered even from a non-human source, which is still, extraordinary and spectacular. Them flying it near live fire drills and anything of that sort, near any sort of assembly of the United States military, that is such a misinformed and dangerous practice that whoever's responsible for that, if that's really what's happening with some of these, that is extraordinarily dangerous. It could result in, like what Digby was just talking about, even people dying. Like,
well, it's just crazy
fire
too,
on it.
like when you hear the stories like from Ryan Graves, where he's talking about about these cube shaped objects surrounded by like a spherical like ball, or
kind of like the thing behind me, but reversed.
but like reversed, and the fact that they're seeing these things all over the ocean, just flying around, almost going unchecked, doing whatever the fuck they want, and it just makes you wonder, like, who are they, what is it, and who's controlling these things. And that's why, when it comes to like drone technology, like, it wouldn't surprise me if there was from extraterrestrials, that they're using a type of drone technology just to move around. And then the times in which they crash, a lot of it is because they have live beings in it and they're not following proper protocol, because, again, I don't want to say they're only human. Again, they're only a life form. So are they cutting corners? Are they doing something that's out of protocol? And all of a sudden they get a weird mind fuck and they're like, oh shit, I'm losing control.
And maybe it was like crash. A hijack, it could have been, there is some belief too that some of the craft that have been recovered, because of their interiors, there's like a lack of instrumentation compared to some others. And this is, again, rumors that I've heard, that as a result of seeing that, they believe some of them are just observational in nature. So you can almost look at that as like a cosmic tour bus of sorts. It may not necessarily be like a scientific endeavor, and it could literally just be their version of tourism.
Well, we're also used to looking at everything having an element to it, a part to it, right? So, for instance, our car has got its dials, it's got its steering wheel, it's got a gearbox, it's got everything like this. What if all of it is the ship? What if everything is everything? So it's all an integral part. It all forms the unit.
And when one piece is taken out, it ceases to function properly.
Yeah. So we look and go, well, this is our computer, does this, this is our camera, this does this. But if everything was a whole, everything was the machine, then it would appear different. But also, if we're talking about advanced civilizations, we're talking about people that have evolved mentally beyond our current capabilities, then you would think that there is a psychic element to it as well.
Yeah.
So the fact that they would need to control it via levers and screens and everything like that would just seem like completely unnecessary. It's more like, I would imagine that the way that they pilot something like this is more along the lines of akin to a symbiotic relationship where, you know, they are connected with each other in some sort of sense, perhaps. But, you know, look, it's all speculation, isn't it? And it's great fun.
Roswell,
but we don't really know the answers.
That's been a rumor, man. That's been a rumor since the 40s, late 40s, that the ship that was recovered at Roswell functioned literally just like that, and like they just had panels with like hand imprints on them. Like I've heard that. I mean, this has come down through the annals of ufology for decades and has not changed. That, and they call it, they have the Roswell I-beam, which also had characters on it that kind of looked like Greek even. And it may have read something like Urantia. It's a rabbit hole that I went down one time. I'll have to try to,
I just did a video on
cohesive.
Roswell, the whole encounter, and it was, to me, what it looked like was that, you know, the craft experienced some kind of catastrophic disaster, and it exploded. It dumped a bunch of its parts all over the ground, and even if those dumb weather balloons were part of it, it probably took those out on its way down, crashed where it did in the plains of San Augustine, and that's where you have Barney Barnett and that group of archaeologist students who ran into the actual craft itself, and I believe that, you know, the stuff they saw, that was, you know, parts of that same craft that crashed 200 miles away because it was just out of control, and then the government came in and swooped that up. We are going to start wrapping things up, you guys, but I did want to ask you, because it's you know, I really like this movie. I'm sure you guys have seen it as well, which is Moment of Contact.
Oh man,
yeah,
I think this was probably the most convincing documentary I've ever seen. And really, at that point, I mean, when we're talking about, you know, these guys right here, I mean, they look different from everything that we've seen. But then again, when we talk about, like, when you watch Tom's Gray video about the Greys, I mean, for all we know, these are the actual gray aliens, and maybe the other ones that we're seeing are artificially created, kind of like, you know, clones of each other to go do the job. But what if these are the actual aliens, and that's why they look different? Like, oh shit. And on top of that, it's like
on that too. The appearance. There's this idea based on what was observed coming out of the ship when it was crashing, that perhaps the atmosphere inside of the ship wasn't necessarily like a rich oxygen based atmosphere, but it may have been a different gas. And what they think is that these beings may have actually been like biological grays, whatever you want to call them. Maybe they have some machine parts too. But what happened is that when they got into our atmosphere, they were exposed to it because they were in phase, like Roy talks about, with like they're succumbing to all of the forces of the earth. That this is strong evidence of like oxidization. So it would account for the red eyes, the way the skin was looking, and also this tremendous smell, this stench that was coming from these beings. Exactly, the ammonia. There's a Reddit post about it that is absolutely brilliant. It's completely grounded in science, and I believe that these beings, that's not what they look like. They were looking like that because they were getting sick from our atmosphere, and they were basically slowly suffocating. It's very sad, actually. I mean, and they needed help.
The fact that the girls ran into them, and they even felt the sense of like it was scared, it needed help, because that's an, you know, that's a basic function that, like, if you're sick, if you're not feeling well, you're in danger, you're sick, that's how you're going to come across. And I just think the story itself is just so fascinating. I mean, Digby, what do you think about this encounter and Moment of Contact? I mean, do you think it's 100% true, or what are your feelings on it?
I believe it. I mean, when a whole city really rallies behind a story and everybody's got their own story to tell about the same event, I think it's hard to pass it off as anything else. I trust James Fox's work. I like his approach. He doesn't go out there to prove something, hell or high water. He goes out and looks for the evidence, and the story is the evidence. Whether it proves something or whether it disproves something. He's not a sensationalist reporter, and he does some fantastic work. And I think Moment of Contact is a brilliant movie, brilliant documentary, and yeah, I think there's more information out there, and he's still waiting for some footage to come out. He's looking in the right directions. I think he thinks that he's about to get his hands on it, but well, time will tell. But I trust James's work. He seems to be a good moral compass and a voice for the phenomenon. And I think a lot of people will agree with that. Whereas other figures can be more divisive, and you have your Lou Elizondo camp or your Jeremy Corbell camp and whatever, and James isn't like that, because he's not out there, he's not loud, he's just in the background doing his work and working hard, and that's what I like about it.
And then the last thing I wanted to bring up was obviously the hearings in Mexico. We got to see these little guys getting presented. Let me ask you guys, do you think these are real or are these fake?
Well, there's right. This is the problem. They're not fake. Okay. And that's, everybody keeps throwing this word around, and it's not the right term, because they are old. Yeah. The question is whether they're real or whether they're fake. The question is whether they are what we think they are. And that's two very different things. So the question is, are they something that's made to replicate or look like something else from 1,000 years ago, that that people 1,000 years ago made in honor of something that they'd seen, or are they in fact real in the sense that this is a mummified alien? That's the question. When people say, oh, they're fake, I think that makes people think somebody's made this recently to pass it off as being an alien, but that's never really been the question. They are 1,000 years old. The question is, are they from a singular skeletal structure, or were they pieced together 1,000 years ago to replicate something else?
Well, and I think that if they were replicated by humans to represent another being, it's one thing to say, okay, these were made by humans long ago in Peru. But then you have to ask yourself, what were they basing it off of? They don't just go, okay, I'm just gonna, do this and do that works. No, it's like they were basing it off of something, and so I think that's what they were trying to do. And there's also I know that there's MRIs and there's different scans they're doing of these bodies, and I'm hearing that some of it is turning out to be like that they're actually real.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we're ever going to get a concrete answer on that, because you have those out there who just want to debunk it immediately.
Okay, so we have a few problems here in the fact that, money can be thrown around and people can be bought to say what we want them to say. Okay, so the only way that we can actually clearly start getting some concrete answers about the MRI scans that were done on them last week is peer review, and the raw footage, the clear data, needs to be passed around and open source so that people can have a look at it. Okay. Definitely. And then we can start getting some answers. Same with the DNA files. But so far, they are saying that they come from a singular skeletal structure. Now, just by me saying that, that's going to upset some people on Twitter, because it's one of those things that people get very excited and very passionate about, going, yeah, but this is debunked. This is debunked. I'm not saying it's true. Let me say that right now. I'm not saying that these are mummified UFOs or aliens that got caught in some algae 1,000 years ago and petrified the way that they have. What I'm saying is, we do not know the full story right here and right now about what these are, and there is a lot of questions that hang over them. Not about the validity of whether they are alien, but there's a lot of questions about the history, and if they aren't actually extraterrestrial, what were they based off of? What were they made to represent? What were they made to look like? And also, they're 1,000 years old. We've only recently discovered them, relatively speaking. So why do they actually also resemble something that we come to know as a grey alien within pop culture and cinematic universe and everything like that? There's coincidences here that that don't seem to add up. And then you've got, a few years back, the Siberian ones that were found that still had flesh on them that are the same pretty much size, and they look identical to them.
Same amount of digits, I think, too, right?
Yeah, exactly. There is a story here.
Leg, I want to say, yeah.
But and then they passed it off as a chicken, and they were forced by Russian TV to come on and say that they were all lying about it. Well, sorry, that doesn't stand up for me, and that's just the way things work in Russia. Go on there and tell them you're lying, otherwise they'll kill you.
No, that was no way that was a chicken. That's one hell of a chicken, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's definitely past its sell-by date. But
there's red flags attached to this, right? Like, so one of the things that has immediately turned people away from looking into it any further is the fact that Jaime Maussan is attached to it. He's got a bad reputation, right?
Yeah.
So we need to I would urge people to disconnect him from this, and let's just focus on the scientific data.
You have to.
We need an international team.
Right. But quickly though, why does he have a bad reputation? Just so everyone who's watching knows, like,
there's hoaxes that he's been involved with, or debunks and such, or like he'll try to pass off certain pieces of footage as being genuine when people can pick up on it maybe being CGI or otherwise pretty quickly. Okay. So he that's an issue. So having him but then one could also be like, well, maybe he showed it and then investigated it, then it got debunked. Not everybody is perfect, right? Nobody's perfect.
And a broken clock is right twice a day.
Right. But this
right?
is so much more different. Now, obviously, things in Mexico are very corrupt. This team that did the CT scans on it that are saying it's a single skeletal structure. That's fine and everything. But now you need to bring in another team to do that. That comes from outside of Mexico. And if they say that, yes, this is a single skeletal structure, then I'm going to be like, okay. Now things are getting interesting because you've now that's peer review. Now you have multiple teams saying the same thing. That's when things get interesting.
Right. I would rather see every single element of that being individual element being carbon dated to make sure that they all match the same.
Yes, too. Is it all 1,000 or is it just the head?
Right.
That's the other thing, because if you have different ages for the different parts, then you got a problem.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that is that going to happen?
It has to.
Are those tests going to happen? I don't know.
Well, look, we've got Ronnie Burnett coming on our show. Hopefully next week, maybe the week after. He's been incredibly busy since the Mexican hearing, but we were lined up to. He's free to speak to us from the 25th. Apparently, was what he said in the last communication with us. So he's coming on the show. He was obviously one of the key speakers at the UFO hearing in Mexico. He's a big advocate for getting to the truth on this particular story, so it'd be really interesting to see and listen to his point of view and his perspective on it. I just ask people just to keep an open mind and not be aggressive about debunking this and saying that it's fake. I'm not saying it's real. I'm just saying that there is more to this story, and I think it's really important that we allow people to do the necessary work that's needed to get to the truth without bias being put on it before we even know what we're dealing with. Remain open-minded and just see where the evidence goes.
It's very important to remain open-minded. But I mean, when I first saw these things, I mean, I'll be honest, I thought they were fake. I was like, I don't. Right. It just seemed kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. Now you're showing bodies, and I think the bias is that, like, okay, no one just does that. This has to be fake. But I think further research has to be done to make sure to check the validity of these bodies to see if they're actually organic, actual beings.
If they are just really old, then why?
It's really old. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and it's like if it was made in the image of something, that is also spectacular. Like there's other options here that are still spectacular.
Exactly. Guys, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank Tom and Digby for coming on the show. Now, guys, I know you have a full list of guests that are going to be coming on the UAP podcast. You want to share that really quick on what you guys have coming up in the coming months?
I think the notable ones that we've got coming up. So we've got Chris Sharp coming on hopefully in November. I spoke to him the other day. He's all ready to go in November. We've got Ronnie Vanette coming up in the next couple of weeks, who was part of the Mexican UAP hearing. And we have next month in October, we've got James Fox coming on, which we're both incredibly excited about.
Really excited.
And really lucky to have him on. But apparently I've harassed him enough that he's giving
That's
in.
the one I got to check out, definitely.
Absolutely. That's going to be a great one for us, and we really cannot wait. And I think that will be one of the first ones I do when I'm in Portugal. So that's I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Are you moving there, or
we are packing up and selling everything, and we are going traveling around the world. So our first stop in 2 weeks is Portugal. So we'll be there for a month, and we're going to Spain for a couple of months, then down to Morocco, across to Egypt, over to Turkey.
Well, lucky you. Shit.
Yeah, I know.
Travel around like that.
This tan's going to get better as I go around the world.
Better. Sun kiss, you know what I mean?
The unidentified anomalous podcast will be coming from a different location very, very soon.
On your end, I'll just be here in New Jersey holding it down.
Yeah, until I catch up with Tom and end up doing one in New Jersey.
New Jersey. And so let's go around the horn, Tom. Where can they find you?
I am at Cortex_0 on Twitter. Obviously, the Unidentified Anomalous podcast with Digby on Twitter and YouTube. And of course, I am Cortex0 on YouTube. And if you want to get in touch with me, my email's listed on there. If you want to get in touch with Digby or myself, our DMs are open. If you want to come on the show, if you want to, just have a guest appearance, if you want to just get in contact with us for any reason whatsoever, we're very, very easy to get a hold of. Twitter's the best way, though.
Reason.
Yeah. There's some reasons I can think of that I wouldn't want.
It's called X now. It's not Twitter. It's X.
That's right. It's X. Listen, hit us up on Twitter if you want to come on the show.
X.
There you go.
I'm calling it Twitter. I'm sticking with Twitter, man. All right, X.
Okay.
Also, we host spaces too on there. We're happy to talk and connect with as many people as possible.
These guys do like a full day. It's like they do the UAP podcast and they do a spaces afterwards.
That was a long night.
That was a marathon, man.
I'm telling you, when I saw it, I was like, wow, they're still going. Jesus.
Yeah. We
last week was 3.5 hours long. I'm at a disadvantage because by that time for me it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're just settling into your evening.
That's right. It's 1:42 here, and what time is it for you, Digby? It's what, 6:42?
Yes, it's 6:45.
Yep. So it's like we're working with the time difference as podcast partners as well. But I
always
really
get the raw end of the deal here.
That's true too. Like one of these
by default.
I'm going to get you to do a bloody podcast at 4 a.m. in the morning.
One of these, and I'm just going to be like, "Welcome."
Well,
I mean, no one will watch it because it'll be a stupid time, but I'll make you do it.
But I mean, that's why I chose this time, for this podcast, because I was like, hey, if we do it at 9 o'clock my time, it'll be 12 for Tom. It'll be whatever the fuck time it is in Spain, but I'm sure it's not too late.
I'm going around the world in the wrong way as well because it's only going
to get worse.
It's actually going to get worse. It's actually going to get worse.
It's only going to get worse before it gets better.
It's like podcast lag instead of jet lag.
Exactly. Okay, Digby, where can they find you and all of your content?
Yeah, I'm at Furneaux on Twitter, X. Meet me there. Otherwise, just look us up. It's X Factor, yeah. Otherwise, look us up on YouTube. We're at UA-pod on YouTube, or search Unidentified Anomalous Podcast. Please, if you haven't gone over to the channel yet, it is new. So anybody that goes over and likes and comments, shares, it does a world of good for the show. Yeah. So please make sure you head over and do that.
Awesome. And guys, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Follow us over on Spotify as well. On Spotify, you get both my channels, so you get everything that's on this channel, the Nicotine Show podcast, and you get everything I do over on Beyond the Unknown, which is my other channel that dives into paranormal, UFO, and soon to be unsolved mysteries as well. So that's something else that I started to work on.
Nice.
I just recently put up a new video about the Roswell crash, and then I'm working on another one about the Nazca lines, which I'm going to put out hopefully sometime next week. But Tom, Digby, thank you so much for coming on here and talking with us and talking with me. And I had a great time, and we should do it again.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Anytime. I had a great time.
And guys, make sure that you, if you want to support the channel, either become a member or join us over on Patreon. And make sure you follow these two guys as well on X, and follow the UAP podcast on YouTube and also on Spotify or wherever you find your podcast. So, guys, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we'll do it again. And if everyone was watching, listening at home, peace.